Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Newstos. So, we do have some pretty big news for the Nintendo Switch today, as it looks like they have an interesting partner working on a possible remake or remaster. This one could potentially be really exciting, so we're going to talk about that one in a little bit. And then also, some fans have started to notice that it's taking the Xbox Series X a little bit longer to sell out. So, what's the deal with that? Does that mean that it has finally met that initial demand? And no, not quite. More evidence is starting to mount up that something else is happening here, and this is actually very good news for Xbox, so we're going to go over that one in a little bit as well. First though, if you do find yourself enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button. It does help out the channel a ton. Plus, go ahead and hit that bell notification and subscribe button as well, so you can keep up to date with all of the latest gaming news. Other than that, though, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with your weekly delay update. Yes, unfortunately, we do have another delay to talk about, and this time it is for that next-generation version of The Witcher 3. Yes, the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 version has been delayed, as CD Projekt Red has decided to pull Saber Interactive off of this game. Now, they didn't give an exact reason as to why they decided to pull Saber Interactive off this game, and they just simply said that they're currently evaluating the scope of work to be done, and thus have to postpone the Q2 release until further notice. And that right there is the other part about this, because they're also not giving a specific release window either. That means that it could be pushed back to Q3 or even further than that. We're just going to have to wait for those specific details later on. So of course, there's obviously going to be some disappointment with this, but I also feel like there's a bit of a silver lining here. See, the thing is that CD Projekt Red, whether they like it or not, they're kind of that poster child for why you shouldn't rush a game to the market. We all kind of saw what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, and it does look like that they've learned their lesson from that. You're actually seeing them here delay this game for the second time, and it just kind of shows you that they're doing everything that they can to make sure that this game is actually ready by the time it releases for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, whenever that may end up being. So the way I kind of look at this is that, yes, it is disappointing, but it just kind of means that one of last generation's best games is going to have to wait a little bit longer before it becomes one of this generation's best games. Next up here, we are starting to hear a little bit more about Dead Island 2. Now, this is a game that was revealed back in E3 of 2014, so I mean, it's been 8 long years since we've last seen this game. But now all of a sudden we are starting to hear about this game once again, and that's because it is looking like it might be true after all that Dead Island 2 will be getting a re-reveal sometime here soon, and might even actually get a surprise release as early as 2022. Now, we first heard about this back in February whenever Tom Henderson claimed that Dead Island 2 was still in active development and could actually be re-revealed this year. And now we are starting to hear something very similar from a second source as well. This is coming from the journalist Colin Moriarty over on the Sacred Symbols podcast, where he said, "I brought this up a few weeks ago on the show, but Dead Island 2 looks like it's going to be re-revealed. I have heard from a source that I trust that the game may be fully revealed sometime this summer and released maybe shortly after that. Maybe September or October at the soonest." Now, he doesn't seem overly confident on the release date per se, but at the very least, it does look like Dead Island 2, once again, will be re-revealed sometime here soon. And this is actually a pretty miraculous comeback for this game. I mean, again, this game was first revealed back in 2014. I think most of us just kind of assumed that this game was canceled, but if you were a fan of that original Dead Island, or if you like the amusing little trailer that they put together back at E3 in 2014, definitely look forward to that re-reveal that supposedly will be happening sometime soon. I will be kind of curious to see how this game turns out, though. Hopefully, the wait will have been well worth it. Let's go and talk about Nintendo, though, because it sounds like that they have a rather interesting partner working on a possible remake or remaster. Now, we'll kind of speculate on all the different possibilities here in just a bit, and I think that there's actually a few strong possibilities, but nonetheless, this partner would be none other than Bandai Namco, which is certainly no strangers of working with Nintendo. We'll kind of get back to that here in just a moment, but this was spotted over on Resetera, where they said some job listings came up recently for a planner of a 3D action game game project contracted by Nintendo. Another listing came up as well for a visual artist for the same Nintendo contracted 3D action game. And then a listing that clarifies it is a remaster/remake working on the HD remastering of 3D backgrounds. So yeah, based off of these listings and the description that we're getting here, it definitely looks like Bandai Namco and Nintendo are working together once again. As I said before, Bandai Namco is no strangers of working with Nintendo, especially this generation. They've actually worked on some very popular Nintendo Switch games, such as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That is a Bandai Namco game. They also developed new Pokemon Snap as well as Pokken, and it's also believed that Bandai Namco was actually the studio behind Metroid Prime 4 before it was canceled and restarted with retro games. And that right there is the one that I find to be most interesting, because here you have these job listings that signifies that Bandai Namco is working on some type of Nintendo remake or remaster, and this is amidst all of those rumors that a Metroid Prime remake is in development. Now, there's some conflicting reports on whether or not this is just Metroid Prime 1 or if it's the entire trilogy, but it is interesting to me that here you have the studio that possibly was working on the original Metroid Prime 4 before it was canceled. Then you have these job listings, and there's also those rumors of a Metroid Prime remake. Because of all of that, that is the first thing that I immediately thought about whenever I saw these job listings here. Now, is that actually the remake or remaster that these job listings are referring to? I really don't know. I'm just simply speculating, and that's kind of the thing, because I don't think that anybody can 100% tell you this is what it's going to be. Now, there's some interesting possibilities out there. There's also some rumors that some more Zelda remasters are going to be coming soon, such as Zelda Twilight Princess or even Zelda Wind Waker. Could it possibly be one of those, if not both of those games? Maybe. Or maybe it could be something completely different. I've seen a lot of speculation online that it could be Kid Icarus Uprising, which I would absolutely be thrilled about. That's actually one of my favorite 3DS games, and really just one of my favorite Nintendo games, period. I would love to see that come over to the Switch and then just really get that franchise kickstarted. It could also be a Star Fox remaster, something like Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube. That would be a pretty cool remaster for the Nintendo Switch. There's also Donkey Kong 64, and really the list just kind of goes on and on. It's hard to tell exactly what this is because we don't really have a lot of information to go on just yet, but if I were to personally guess, my guess would probably be Metroid Prime. I think that kind of makes the most sense considering Bandai Namco's history with Metroid Prime, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Let me know what you think about all of this, though. Do you have any guesses as to what Bandai Namco and Nintendo are possibly working on here together? Let me know in the comments below. Now, there's also something very interesting that seems to be happening with the Xbox Series X. Earlier this year, there was some people that started to take notice that the Xbox Series X, it doesn't seem to be selling out as quickly as what it used to. However, it is still selling out, and if you go take a look at places like Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, as of the recording of this video, it is sold out on all of those websites. But again, the trend as of recent is that whenever they do have a supply drop on one of those places, it takes a little while before it sells out rather than just a couple of minutes like we're kind of used to seeing. So what's the deal here? Has the Xbox Series X kind of met that initial demand, and is that why we're starting to see some slowdown in how fast the Xbox Series X sells out? Well, no, not necessarily. It actually seems like there's a much simpler answer here, and that really just comes down to the Xbox Series X right now is receiving more stock than what we have seen in the past. We actually first heard about this from Nick Baker over on the Xbox Era podcast, where he had mentioned that Microsoft had paid for chip priority for the Xbox Series X. Now, at the time, this was just a rumor, but it is starting to seem like there might be something to this after all. We are starting to see the Xbox Series outsell the PlayStation 5 and even the Nintendo Switch in some pretty key territories. One specifically has actually already been confirmed, being the UK. It has now been confirmed by GfK that the Xbox Series was the best-selling console for the month of March in the UK, in large part because of new Xbox Series X stock. Just month over month, the Xbox Series saw a 61% increase compared to February, which just kind of shows you, again, yes, they are receiving a lot more stock for that Xbox Series X. This actually catapulted them into first place, beating out Nintendo Switch, which came in second place, and then the PlayStation 5, which still remains low in supply, in third place. Now, and I always kind of have to be very clear about this subject, we are not talking about which one has more demand here. We're very specifically talking about supply. If both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series had the same amount of stock, we could be having a very different story here. But that's not the case. We are talking about supply, and it does seem like Xbox might have alleviated some of those issues a little bit for the Xbox Series X. And this might not just be happening in the UK either. We are hearing some very similar things in the United States as well. We have not gotten a confirmation just yet, but it does look like the Xbox Series might have outsold the PlayStation 5 in the United States as well. It just feels like Xbox right now has bigger supply drops, and I do wonder if that is because what Nick Baker said, and they really did pay for chip priority. That definitely does seem like the case as of this moment. This, however, is a big thing for Xbox, though, because if you kind of look back on things, back in 2017, I think it was 2017, there was some very real discussions on whether or not Xbox would just kind of call it quits or not. And now here we are in 2022, just 5 years later, they have Xbox Game Pass, they have acquired a ton of different studios, and are actually in the process of making the biggest game acquisition in history with Activision Blizzard, and now they're actually outselling the PlayStation 5 in some key territories. Even if this really just comes down to supply, it also just goes to show you there's still a lot of demand for the Xbox Series, which is a story all on its own. So Xbox really has come a long way this generation, but I will also be interested to see how it plays out in the long run. I mean, really right now, we're still dealing with the chip shortages, very obviously, but on top of that, we haven't even gotten to that meaty part of the generation yet. I mean, right now, over on the Xbox side of things, you've had a couple of big exclusives such as Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite, but I mean, we're still talking about cross-generation titles here, and then with the PlayStation 5, we've gotten things like Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo, Ratchet & Clank, and so on and so forth. But again, with games like Horizon Forbidden West, that's another cross-generation game. So, I mean, we're still at the infancy stage of both the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, and once we start to get those big next-generation exclusives, I just think that this is going to be a super exciting generation, and I love the competition that we're seeing so far. I always like to say this, and I'm just going to say it again, sorry for repeating this, but competition breeds excellence. I truly do believe that, and because of that, I think that this is going to be one of the wildest generations yet. Next up here, let's go and talk about Battlefield 2042 and some of the struggles that it has been having. And I think by this point, we all kind of understand that the launch for this game has been rough, to say the least. But now it's set kind of an all-time low. It has now been spotted that Battlefield 2042, not even 6 months after release, has already dropped below 1,000 concurrent players in a 24-hour period on Steam. Now, not only are we talking about a big AAA blockbuster game here, but this is actually one of EA's biggest franchises, period. And to see it drop below 1,000 concurrent players in less than 6 months, that is alarming, to say the least. And I've said this before, but really they don't have anybody to blame but themselves. This game should have never released in the state that it did. There was already some signs with the beta that this game was having some issues. However, EA just kind of came out and said, no, everything's just fine. It's just an old build, and by the time this game actually releases, it's going to be perfectly fine. Well, it wasn't perfectly fine, and this right here is the result of EA's actions. EA decided to rush this game out despite already knowing that it had some issues. Fans were majorly disappointed at launch, and for the fans that tried to stick around, they are now leaving as well. And I think that this is just a very unfortunate situation because it really is just tied with greed at the end of the day. It seems to me that EA's priority was to get this game out by the holiday months. All signs kind of point to that being the case, including them taking Criterion games off of Need for Speed in order to actually get this game out for the holiday months. They wanted to capitalize on those holiday sales, and that's fine and everything if the quality was there, but that right there is kind of the problem. Their priority was to release it during the holiday months in detriment of the game's quality. I just feel like it's an unfortunate situation for the Battlefield community that they somehow mismanaged this game this poorly. But if you are a Battlefield fan, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments below. Are you still playing Battlefield 2042, or have you instead moved on? And also, do you still think that they can fix this game, or do you think it's already too late? Let me know in the comments below. Let's go and move on over to the poll of the day, though. Yesterday, Certain Affinity did reveal that they are deepening their relationship with 343 Industries, and seemingly they will be playing a major role in the future of Halo Infinite. Now, this leads us to the rumor that Certain Affinity is working on a new game mode that possibly might be a Battle Royale-like. So with that in mind, and I know people can kind of be conflicted on whether or not they want Halo Infinite to have a Battle Royale, so I wanted to ask you all, do you think Halo Infinite should add a Battle Royale mode? And as you can see here, once again, it seems like many of you all are very conflicted about this, with 41% of you saying yes, while the majority of you all, being 49%, said no. So this is about as split of a poll that you're going to see. A lot of people just don't like the idea of a Battle Royale coming over to Halo Infinite, while other people thinks that this could benefit the franchise in a major way. Now, I have seen people kind of say that they want 343 to just continue to focus on completing Halo Infinite because there's still some things that they want Halo Infinite to have, such as cooperative mode. There's also that Forge mode. These have not released yet. So they want 343 to primarily focus on stuff like that, and then also just kind of expanding the arena multiplayer and big team battles. And that is understandable because that is the DNA of Halo. At the same time, though, that's kind of where Certain Affinity comes in. This is an entirely different team here, and while they have helped out with Halo Infinite, it seems like they're going to be playing an even bigger role here. So this isn't necessarily going to take away from the resources that is just working on all of the things that we already love about Halo. So I think the question I have is, will this benefit Halo in a big way? And I think that it potentially could, because Battle Royales are incredibly popular. I don't necessarily like Battle Royales myself, and I would much rather go play arena, multiplayer, or big team battles, or whatever. That's what I would continue to focus on. But at the same time, I think that Battle Royale could potentially bring in an entirely new fan base and keep Halo Infinite running for that 5 to 10 years, which is their ultimate goal. So I think that this could be big for Halo, though I do kind of hope that they have their own spin on this genre if they do indeed do something like that. And as long as it doesn't detract from, again, what makes Halo so special in the first place, then I'm not really against having more options per se. Again, I'll just kind of continue playing arena or big team battles, but I do find it interesting that a lot of you all are saying no on this situation. This just kind of shows you just how split the Halo community is about this topic after all. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.